And now to our London bureau. Here's Simon Pusey with Around the World in 5.
Good evening from the Channel's newsroom here in London. North Korea says the test of 2 new missiles is a solemn warning against what it described as South Korean warmongers. The short-range missiles were fired into the Sea of Japan, also known as the East Sea, from Wonsan on North Korea's east coast. Leader Kim Jong-un said his country was forced to develop weapons to eliminate potential and direct threats. He said the test involved a new tactical guided weapons system. Mr. Kim's comments, reported in state media, come after the North criticised a decision by South Korea and the US to hold military drills next month. Responding to the tests, US President Donald Trump, who met Kim Jong-un in North Korea only a few weeks ago, said his administration should be praised for their work with North Korea.
I think with North Korea we've been doing very well, but that doesn't mean it's going to continue. We have a relationship. President Obama had no relationship. You would have been at war. Had Hillary Clinton won this election, you'd be at war right now with North Korea.
Airstrikes by the Syrian government and its allies on schools, hospitals and markets have killed at least 103 civilians in just the past 10 days. That's according to the UN Human Rights Chief. In April, the Syrian government began its offensive against the rebel enclave in northwest Syria, the last area of active insurgent opposition to President Bashar al-Assad. Over the past 3 months, the offensive has driven hundreds of thousands of people from their homes or temporary shelters to seek refuge near the border with Turkey. The UN say 26 children are among the more than 100 killed in the last 10 days.
As the High Commissioner says, there are so many casualties that it's no longer even possible to give a credible estimate. During the early years of this murderous conflict, when the casualties were in the teens and then the hundreds and then the thousands, the world showed considerable concern about what was happening. Now, as the High Commissioner says, airstrikes kill and maim significant numbers of civilians several times a week, and the response seems to be a collective shrug.
Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas says the Palestinians will no longer abide by previous agreements made with Israel. His announcement followed an emergency meeting after Israel knocked down Palestinian buildings it said were illegally built on the edge of Jerusalem. UN officials who had called on Israel to halt the demolition plans said 17 Palestinians were forced out as a result. Agreements signed over the past 25 years will now not apply, according to the announcement. Hong Kong's chief secretary has warned protesters to be careful ahead of planned weekend protests. It comes after more than 1,000 protesters, some chanting "Free Hong Kong," converged on the city's airport on Friday. Matthew Chung gave the warning after 45 people were injured in attacks by suspected gang members during a march last Sunday. He said it was up to the courts to decide whether the planned march was lawful.
As you can see, we are taking a very serious attitude towards tomorrow's move. Whether there's a procession or not, we can't rule out the possibility of a large number of people turning up. As I said, if the appeal board upholds the decision of the police, then the procession is not lawful. So I just remind participants that do take this fully into account, and also their own safety is very important.
Over 100 wildfires are currently raging across Russia's Siberian Irkutsk region in a territory of over 500,000 hectares. According to the ministry, monitoring from space shows that towns and villages located close to the fires are under threat of heavy smoke pollution. Another region affected by the wildfires is the Krasnoyarsk region in Siberia, where over 920,000 forests are on fire. Overall, territory affected by wildfires is over 2.3 million hectares. China's foreign ministry says an investigation into FedEx found that the US delivery firm withheld more than 100 Huawei packages entering China. Beijing started a probe into FedEx last month after Huawei said the company had diverted parcels intended for it. It came after Huawei was placed by Washington on a blacklist in mid-May that effectively blocks US firms from doing business with the company. And finally, a heat wave swept through London on Thursday, which was the second hottest day on record for the city. The heat wave, coming from the Mediterranean, kicked into full swing with temperatures climbing to 37.7 degrees Celsius in London and the surrounding areas. It was a new July temperature record for the entire United Kingdom. Many commuters had to travel on sweltering tube lines equipped with no air conditioning. Authorities say the underground tube lines won't get air conditioning until the year 2030. And that's your international news around the world in 5.
Thank you, Simon. And let's bring you the latest of sports. Here's Olumide Macaulay.